Welcome to Mainland, Nelson's regional television station. I'm Chrissy Small, and some of the stories coming up in our Nelson Tasman Regional News Roundup. Salisbury School faces closure. Mapua Wharf community voices its concern. Council's code of conduct is questioned, and more. Nelson MP Dr Nick Smith has said this week that he is saddened but not surprised by the Minister of Education's decision to initiate consultation on the potential closure of Salisbury Girls' School, announced by the Ministry last Friday. However, based on figures released by the Ministry, he said the school cannot go on in its current form, saying you cannot justify $2 million a year, 42 full-time and part-time staff, and the use of a prime 8-hectare site for 9 pupils. The school has faced closure before in recent times, but won their fight to stay open after taking action against Minister of Education Hikia Parata and winning in court. Tania Omar spoke with Salisbury School Board of Trustees Chair John Kane to get his response to this latest announcement.
Okay, well, welcome John. Thank you for coming in today.
My pleasure.
Could you please tell us briefly some of the background on Salisbury School and how the enrolments were conducted before everything changed with the Ministry of Education?
Well, with the setting up of the intensive wraparound service, the Ministry took stronger control over the enrolment process about 4 years ago. Prior to that, the school had typically a roll of 70-80 students, girls. Then, with the intensive wraparound service coming into play, the emphasis became more on not using the residential schools, but keeping students in their local communities for their special needs education, which for a great majority of students works very well, but not for all. Unfortunately, the intensive wraparound service, which is part of the head office of the Ministry, have sort of taken it, in our view, much too far by closing off the residential option.
Why do you think the enrolments that the Minister of Education is saying, the enrolment levels are too low, why do you think they've fallen to historically low levels?
Well, it is because of the intensive wraparound service essentially closing off the enrolments. To get into a place like Salisbury, students have to first become accepted into the intensive wraparound service. Now that's a major issue because typically people will apply for a couple of years, several times. They've got to be very persistent and they've got to be very system savvy. So we've seen quite a change in the sort of kids who get through. They are kids who get through because they've got very well resourced parents. There's been a huge drop off, for example, in the number of Māori students getting through. Salisbury used to have 50% of its students Māori. Now we have none.
And why is this?
Well, I think it's because the difficulties in getting through the IWS gatekeeping processes are too daunting. The most recent parents families that have managed to get their student or their kid into IWS have been highly accomplished professionals or management people who just have have fewer difficulties in confronting these incredibly obstructive systems.
It's interesting when we were out asking locals about the possible closure of Salisbury School, the indication is the local people love the school and have, it's very much a part of their community, and we've got 100% feedback that they don't want the school closed. So what are your thoughts on the government listening to the local community?
Well, good luck, local community. It should. The school serves a national clientele, if you like, but it has a lot of connection with the local community. Our girls are out gaining community confidence in the community, because we're talking about kids who in most cases have intellectual disabilities, have often had their confidence very severely knocked through their experiences until they come to Salisbury. And so, a major part of the exercise is to build up their confidence and to give them opportunities to develop in and out of the school. So community resources are used a lot, and so there's a lot of interaction between particularly the Richmond community and the school, but the wider regional community as well.
Okay, so what changes have you offered to the ministry to enable the school to be able to continue?
Well, the Select Committee, the Education Science Select Committee of Parliament last year convened to conduct an inquiry into autism, dyspraxia and other disabilities and educational provision for these. We made a very substantial submission, and it was very well received by members of the Select Committee. In conjunction with that, we made a proposal to the Ministry and Minister for the school to become more of a specialist institution for those conditions. So we would still keep our special character around intellectual disability, but we would, and we've always had occasional, quite a few autistic students, but we would start to develop more of a specialisation in that area, because one thing that we do know is that there's a degree of compatibility between the intellectually disabled students in an institutional setting and the autistic kids. There's not that compatibility with students who have, for example, conduct disorders. Conduct disordered kids and intellectually disabled kids are not a great mix for reasons which I think most people would understand. And the same with autistic kids and conduct disordered kids. Autistic kids need a much more orderly environment, and the conduct disordered kids tend to produce the opposite effect. So we've discussed, it's our view that there's a huge place for an institution which becomes highly expert in providing for both the intellectually disabled, which we are, autistic, which we are already and will become even more so, and other conditions like Prader-Willi syndrome, which involves development delay and so on.
Okay, so you're offering expert specialist services in very high needs areas. You're offering solutions, so what was the government's response?
Well, we have finally got to see the ministry's advice to the minister on our proposal, and one of the things that has dismayed us is that the advice is in some respects quite misleading about what the school's intentions are and what the effects would be on provision of special needs education across the system. And we are looking for an opportunity, and we are certainly going to take this consultation process as an opportunity to correct that.
In what way was it misleading?
Well, on costings, some of those were in error. In terms of the severity of needs of the students that we would be taking, those were significantly understated in the advice, and of course that painted a picture. By the time you put those two things together, it paints a picture of, and it was a picture of, not the best use of resources. So the minister didn't get the advice that I think she deserved, and in order to make a good decision.
And you look quite, calm and methodical about it. Has it made you angry?
Well, there are no points for getting angry. No, we've got a big job ahead of us, which is to use this consultation period to best effect, and we've got to really focus on that, and we are. We could be, packing sads in the media and so on, but that's not going to serve any purposes. We know that there are a lot of people out there who are angry and who are venting, and that's fine. There are parents who are bitterly disappointed. I mean, the case of this chap who got his daughter through the doors, or through the gates of IWS only last week, and then was in the process of applying to get her into Salisbury, to find that the whole thing was going to be canned. I mean, and having spent 2 years and 5 applications and a massive amount of work, you can imagine how he feels. And he's not alone. So there's plenty of anger out there, and it needs to be focused. But our role is to really make our submissions as telling as they can be.
Well, thank you, John, and good luck.
Thank you very much.
Mapua residents turned out en masse for a protest on Sunday, organised to show disapproval for Tasman District Council's planned fence dividing the former cool storage building from the new Shed 4 retail complex owned by council. Locals see the fence as a statement of spite against former Hamish's owner Adele Culto, who is rumoured to be moving into a corner of the cool storage building retail complex right behind the new Shed 4. Mainland TV was there to hear what some of those people had to say.
We don't want the fence where it is. There's no need for it. And to put wedding things behind it, it's an eyesore. Move the fence that way and everyone's happy. So can I have a voice of opinion? Because we're not getting this meeting only about the fence.
Do we actually need a fence at all?
No, I don't know.
That's right.
It's an offence, isn't it? It's an offence if people don't want the fence. Right.
No fence. It's getting like a Berlin Wall.
It is. Can we have a show of hands for support? Put your hands up.
Down the fence.
Right. That's all we want to know.
Now what are you going to do about that one then?
Well, hopefully no, I can't say I'll do
Before we wind up, can I say a word? I can't come over that side of the boundary because I'll be trespassed, according to Mr. Cooper. Yeah, yep. The fence was actually 3.6 metres high, and somebody came along one night and cut the tops off. On the Saturday, Cooper discovered it, accused me of it. And I said, look, if I'd done it, they'd been at ground level. But anyway, he got quite nasty. On the Monday, he came over, wanted the toilet list signed. I said, have you checked your camera? Because he was going to have me in court and God knows what, because he's got a camera up there.
Yeah, because he's a bully.
And he hasn't had time to check his camera. And no apologies, but they now say they know who did it, and it's not me. But no apologies. So, and the idea was to completely block the dell off from the wharf, and the rubbish bins will go to behind it, so they could come in through our place to collect the rubbish bins. And that's after I gave them free access, free power, free water, and the engine room in that area there to build their building. And they're also over the road using our land. And as far as the standing council, disgusting people. That's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Hey, so how's it been dealing with the commercial manager, Jean Cooper?
Disgusting.
In what way?
I think he's a nasty little man.
Okay, and have you had any other feedback about his dealings
I've
in the
heard
area?
I've heard lots of rumours, but I can't repeat them.
No, okay.
You know,
Yeah. Do you think there's a general feeling of intimidation from him around here?
Definitely.
I've heard a similar thing, and I'm just curious as a landlord, because you own this other big building here. How have you ever had this kind of issue with council before?
Yeah, well, actually, council have been negative from the day we bought this property. You know, they've been pretty obstructive, would be the word, from even that time. But as for Cooper, no, just unbelievable. Unbelievable.
So you've got Hamish's moving in here?
Hopefully.
Yeah.
There's no lease. Adele was our tenant in there for more than 10 years, the best tenants we've ever had. when we sold the building, we gave it to the council because they wouldn't give us renew the land lease. So the building really wasn't worth a lot of money, but the condition was they had to look after Adele. Well, they failed to do that.
What are you going to do about council now? I mean, you've got this situation. Have you complained to the CEO about dealing with Gene Cooper?
Yep, don't want to know. He just tells a story and they believe him. And you're a liar, even if you've got witnesses.
Oh, Donnie Alderton, I hope that somehow council can come to the party and resolve this mess, because it is a mess and the community is really upset about it, as you can see from today.
Yeah.
And, as it's been pointed out, Adele, after the aquarium burnt down, Adele was the one that kept drawing the families down here and making it part of the place that it's become today.
Right, well, even with the aquarium burning down, I held the lease with Murray Goss. Now, you would have read 2 nights after the burnt down, which was about September 2011, I think, the mayor let him off his lease because he didn't have a business. But the mayor didn't have a lease with him, did he? I had the lease. I had to carry on paying for the land lease till April the 31st, 2012, when they then took the lease back. But they only refunded me for the area of land where the aquarium was. In the meantime, they put all car parks and that in there, and that was all in there. I kept paying for it. And I want to know why some people don't pay anything, and I get screwed. And I mean screwed. The dearest land in Nelson was that land there, $21 a square metre. And remember, I owned every improvement on that land because it came from the Apple family.
Those of you who don't know me, I'm Kip Mainland and I'm standing for Mayor. I've been on council, I did 3 years on there. I can't understand why the council built this in the first place, because it's a commercial building. A simple solution should have been, and I know they had some money from the library that burnt down, and the old library that burnt down in Golden Bay, and they wanted to use it. But if you wanted to keep control of this area, I would have leased out the land and let a developer do it, and then they wouldn't have used 1.8 million of ratepayers' money to do it. Now what they've got is they've got a conflict, because they own this and they want their tenants to do really well, but they don't own the other areas. And I see that as a conflict for council that they shouldn't have. Council should be involved in core businesses, core services, and that does not mean building commercial buildings around the place. The other thing that council's done, and you people mightn't be aware of it, is they've hired 86 additional staff in the last 9 years. I've got an Official Information Act reply in relation to that. So that's why your rates are so darn high. They've now got 246 odd staff in there when they used to have 157. It's another thing that needs to be fixed.
Well, there's 46 of them working.
How many?
46 out of
46.
246.
Yeah, but this shouldn't have happened, and I've got to say, the councillors themselves didn't know this was going on until it was brought to their attention, because staff do things without telling the councillors, and that's an issue.
As one of the locals here, Annie, what do you think about the fence?
I think it's disgusting.
Okay, so what brought you down here today?
Well, I wanted the fence to go. I'm really sick of the council. They keep saying things they're not doing. There's people here that are afraid to come down because they're afraid for their livelihoods. So a lot of us came down for that reason.
Right, so when you say they're afraid of their livelihoods, they're scared of repercussions if they're seen to be protesting down here today?
That's exactly right.
Okay, so we're looking at the person who's, dealing with the commercial aspect of running this wharf. What would you do? What would you say? Would you give them a 9 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10 for great public relations? What would you give them?
-6.
Okay. All right. So, and the fence, of course, it's supposed to be hiding the service lane. Is it fit for purpose?
Absolutely not.
What do you think it's there for?
Spite.
And I just think that we have to stand up for what we want round here and not have all the terms always dictated. I think council have got a long way to go to come up to standard on some issues, and one of those is the overspend here. It's been out of control. It's just been out of control. So they've got to do something about that. We expect to have proper answers and proper accountability when the June 30th report comes out. So we await that time. Otherwise we don't know quite what's going on here. We know that what's here will stay here until then, and we hope that it'll go after that. Thank you.
MP for Tasman Damien O'Connor was in Mapua this week, and I caught up with him to talk about accountability over the Mapua wharf overspend by Tasman District Council. Briefly, $577,000 overspend. Do you think that's acceptable?
Look, there are clearly some problems here with the management of the area. This is a little iconic destination, and it's going to grow. The council desperately needs to have a long-term plan that incorporates other areas of Mapua. A person said to me the other day, we should be building a walking, cycling kind of village here, and I totally agree with that. The bypass went in on the basis that we could create a better living environment here in Mapua and Ruby Bay and the surrounds. So we've got to actually adhere to that. It's a shame that so much money has to be spent here and for causes that and for some facilities that we're not quite sure are good value. There's a lot of debate. We need a long-term strategic plan, and we need to bring the community on board, explain what we're trying to do here, and that's the council and everyone, I guess. It's all ratepayers' money. We need to be on the same sheet of paper here so that whatever money is spent is not wasted and it heads in the right direction.
Because process hasn't been followed, and it all really kind of came home to roost when all the councillors were quite shocked when it was announced a week or so ago that that was a huge overspend. Should there be some accountability for that overspend, even if it is justified? Because it wasn't following procedure, should there be accountability?
Well, there should always be accountability, and I think across, as I say, the corporate world, council and government, perhaps there hasn't been the same level of accountability that people have expected in their own lives. If they make a mistake, they have to pay. We do need to bring some more accountability into councils when we're spending ratepayers' money, and the same with taxpayers' money. I think that's a fair part of any democratic system, and it's up to the CEO, the councillors, to keep the CEO in line, the CEO to keep all his or her managers in line. Really, really important. If people think they can walk away from massive mistakes, then that doesn't send a good message out for other managers, for councillors, or for any of us.
Now, just winding this one up, Damien, if council is a landlord, should they be showing more favouritism to their own tenants than the tenants next door?
Councils have a crucial role in places like this. If they are landlords and they are involved in commercial enterprises, they've got to make sure that they don't show bias towards their own enterprises against other small, medium enterprises. People find it hard work to make a buck these days, and they've got to know that they've got a reasonably fair playing field. Nothing's perfect, but when the council or central government steps in and has monopolistic powers, then any abuse of that should be quickly shut down, and that's effectively by the councillors, by the people who are ultimately responsible.
Mainland TV, along with researcher Catherine Strong, provoked a response from the Mayor after challenging the Nelson City Council about the wording in their Code of Conduct, and in particular a paragraph that could essentially gag elected representatives. Nelson Mayor Rachel Rees included in her mayoral report last week the need for Council to revisit the Code of Conduct and reassess the use of this paragraph. So I put the question of the Code of Conduct that could gag councillors to Damien O'Connor. There's a professor that's been looking at Code of Conduct in councils, and Nelson has taken on some wording that means that it's going to be more tricky for a councillor to criticise their own decisions or the council's decisions publicly. What do you think about Code of Conduct, and do parliamentarians have to have something like that in their little contract?
Well, we've got standing orders, and there's quite a thick book of rules of what we should and shouldn't do, and then we've got speakers' rulings that interpret those. So we have to abide by a fairly strict code, but not being able to criticise, what has gone on wouldn't be in that. I mean, clearly, if you're part of a team and a party, then you have good, healthy debate. You do make a decision and you get on with it. Councillors have to respect that, but I don't think it's smart to have a code of conduct that says you're not allowed to speak your mind or opinion, but you've got to respect if you're part of a team, then you abide by the team decisions. So I'm not sure what the code might incorporate, but I am concerned that across the country, in both the corporate world, in cooperatives and councils now in Parliament, where we're being told to keep quiet and not to intervene. I don't abide by that at all. I think we have to speak our mind. There are places where we should do that, and places where we shouldn't. But as a democratically elected person, I think that we have a responsibility to speak out on behalf of our constituents, and clearly not all of them will agree with us. But that's part of democracy. If you don't act appropriately, if you're not doing your job, then people can get rid of you at the next election, and that's good accountability. I'm not sure we have to be told what to do each and every moment of our jobs.
After the break, we'll bring you the latest weather update and some events and happenings coming up from around the region.
Are you looking for a scooter, walker, wheelchair, baby seats or pushchairs? Then come in and see the Nelson Region Specialist at Mobility for You, 269 Queen Street, Richmond, opposite the library. We have a huge selection of scooters, walkers, wheelchairs and accessories, along with a free booklet guide. We also provide a breakdown service if you ever get a puncture or a flat battery. We have fully equipped service vans to rescue you. Hi, I'm Robin Jordan and I invite you to call in and see the friendly team at Mobility for You, 269 Queen Street, Richmond, opposite the library.
Why would you want to pay as much as $1,000 for a single bed mattress when you can buy a high quality locally made mattress like this for as little as $220? And a queen size mattress could cost you in excess of $3,000, but at Nelson Beds you could have a mattress like this as low as $425. So why would you go out and spend a fortune on your child's bedroom when you can come to Nelson Beds and buy a complete single mattress and base set, a 7-drawer Scotch chest, a headboard and a 3-drawer bedside cabinet for as little as $979? So call and discuss our custom manufacturing options and local after sales service at Nelson Beds, Nelson's only bedding manufacturer.
We're the team at JCar, right here in Nelson, 120 Hardy Street. Our shop is full of electronic items,
including security alarm systems, electronic components,
solar and power,
electronics, toys,
sound systems, cables and much, much more. JCar.
120 Hardy Street, Nelson.
Sit and Be Fit is on at the Victory Community Centre Tuesdays and Thursdays at 10 a.m. at the Victory Community Church, 238 Upper Vanguard Street. School terms only. Fun while you get fitter, work at your level.
On behalf of the team here at Mainland Television News in Nelson, thank you very much for joining us once again.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.
Nelson Tire Centre. Great prices, great service. Buy your own Bryford trailer. All types, all sizes. See Colin Douglas for your tires and batteries.